women are under so much pressure to be a certain way to fit this patriarchal beauty standard. We're not thin enough, we're not curvy enough, our boobs aren't big enough, and all of that can feel really disempowering to us. And so to claim your body and your sexuality and feel empowered in it just as it is, with your body hair, your cellulite, and feel free in it and own it and love it and be proud of it, is a rebellious act.
Welcome to the Multiverse, where we believe that mushrooms can actually save the world, and that if humans mirrored the magic and wisdom of the fungi kingdom, we would have a far more joyous and connected planet. Each week, we'll be meeting with experts to learn about everything from functional mushrooms, psychedelic medicines, and so much more. Thanks for listening. Step into the multiverse with us. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Into the Multiverse. Today, we have a friend of mine, Bianca Taylor, on the podcast. And I'm excited about this conversation for a few reasons. But one is that we've been kind of orbiting each other. So I've known a lot about you from mutual friends that love and adore you, but actually don't know that much about your story. So in preparation for this podcast, I did a deep stalk of you on the internet. You have a massive presence online. And it's always really interesting, to get that viewpoint of someone, their digital version of themselves versus the in real life version. But, I have so many takeaways from the things that I've learned and lots of questions to ask you. But, when I, and also we share a podcast production team. So Chelsea and Andre, and I was actually talking to Chelsea before we started recording. And I was like, what's something interesting about Bianca? And she was like, the range of what you put online. This like beautiful sex positivity, divine feminine that you put out there into the world. And there's so much we can talk about with that. And then also just like the raw vulnerability, mental health. So I'm really excited to dive into all the things. How would you describe yourself?
Yeah, me too. Well, thank you for having me on. I'm so excited, and this set is so cute. I'm obsessed. Yeah, I mean, that's a really good way to put it, is I have a really wide range. We are all multifaceted beings, and I learned at one point that I don't have to box myself in online. We're always told you need to find your niche and stick to your niche, and that's great, but you can also express and explore and share all of the different facets of you. So that's kind of what I've been doing and it's been evolving over time as well, as I've been more open about my spiritual journey and coming out of the spiritual closet, as I call it.
And, there's a few different ways, I guess, that we could describe you for people that aren't familiar with your content. And, and a lot of people, after I give this description, may be wondering like, okay, what's the tie to into the multiverse mushroom psychedelic world? But part of what we're trying to do is, is bring in amazing, influential people from totally different realms to come and share how psychedelics and mushrooms play a part in their journey, which we'll get to later. But this is how I would describe you based on what I've learned online. You are a vegan fitness influencer, entrepreneur, podcast host, coach, dancer, artist. Also, if you scroll, backwards in your stories, you're also an incredible artist. There's so many different layers of you. Is that kind of all encompassing? What is not in that list?
Yeah, I mean, you really nailed it. I am a content creator, entrepreneur. I'm a coach as well. And I use my social media platforms to share all of my different interests from art and dance. And I do incorporate that into my coaching as well and into my teaching. My coaching business is called The Embodied Babe, and I help women find their confidence in themselves and up-level their lives. And so a lot of that is tapping into your creative gifts. So for me to teach that, I have to also be on that journey myself. So that is painting, belly dancing, pole dancing. I mean, and anything that's creative. I love it. And I like sharing it with the world and inspiring people. I love getting messages from people saying I started painting again. I stopped painting when I was, younger, and I started painting again because I saw you doing it. And I'm like, yes, that's kind of what my message is. My message is just to feel the full range of everything that you love to do. And I did start out as a fitness influencer, and I still do that. I have a fitness app, and I focus on plant-based nutrition because I've been vegan for close to a decade now. So all of that is in my little universe.
Okay, so how did this all happen?
Yeah.
Like, where did you come from? What's the origin? And also, if you can kind of share along the journey, have you read The Artist's Way? Or do you know the concept of the artist way?
Mm-mm.
It's all about, it's by Julia Cameron, and a lot of people credit it to them discovering their true passion in life, because we all have our inner artists, but our society gears us towards career paths and things that, tend to make money or be more traditional. And so, you could have a stifled, like, incredible pianist inside of you, or guitarist or painter or pottery, whatever it ends up being, but we're not able to actually, like, express those gifts. But it feels like you've kind of like you've really continued to tap into your inner artist. And have you always been that way? So, kind of take us back to the beginning of, like, how did you become?
Yeah. How did I get here? So growing up, I was a very creative kid. I was into arts and crafts. I loved to dance. And then I became really involved in theater. And theater and dance was everything to me. That was, I used to compete in theater competitions. I would choreograph shows, and I would win, awards in my county for choreographing shows with like 50 teenagers in them. That was my life, and I thought that that's what I was going to do. And when it came time to go to college, I didn't believe in myself enough. I thought that I wasn't enough of a triple threat to try to audition and move to New York and pursue theater. So I took some time to really find myself, and I explored all of these different things, from cosmetology school to going to community college. And in the meantime, I was working at a gym. And while I was there working at the gym, I just really fell in love with the process of what you can do with your body, because I realized that I could find empowerment in sculpting my body, feeling strong and feeling healthy. And I actually just kind of left my love of dance and theater and creative arts. I just kind of stopped doing it, and I became solely focused on the gym, and that became my new kind of focus. And I started competing in bodybuilding, and as I was doing that, I was sharing my journey online. I started building this following, being known as like a girl who competes in bodybuilding and fitness. And at the same time, I also ended up in marketing, and I was not happy there. It was just slowly killing my soul, and I would just look forward to going to the gym every day. And eventually I quit that and went full-time into being a fitness coach. And that became the thing that I was known for. That's where my following really grew. And I really loved helping people transform their relationship with their body beyond just, okay, I feel better about myself because now I have more muscular legs or abs, or I've lost some weight, but more so stepping into an embodied version of yourself and feeling confident. And that I found that your relationship with fitness and wellness in your body is a doorway into a deeper spiritual journey. And I didn't know that at the time. I know that now. But at the time, I just became really passionate about that. And once I moved to California and I met my partner, Nimai, we built veganfitness.com together. And we just started coaching. I mean, we've coached thousands of people together, whether they are already plant-based and they want to clean up their diet, or they are interested, like they're veg curious, we call it, and they want to maybe try going vegan, but they aren't sure if they can maintain muscle or if they can achieve their dream body. And that became the focus. And over the past couple of years, I've gone through such a personal transformation. And actually, psychedelics have been a big part of that, because I realized that I had left all of my love for the arts, for painting, for dancing, for performing. I had just left it and went fully focused onto my entrepreneurial path. And so in the past couple of years, I've been just diving back into that and sharing that, because it is such an important part of my journey. And it's really nice to receive the feedback and see how it impacts people, and kind of stepping back into my role as a dance teacher or choreographer, but just in a different way. And that's kind of where I'm at now, and sharing that journey as I go.
And, there's a lot of questions and things we could go into there. But one of the things I think about a lot, and, looking at the platform that you've built, because you have collectively, several across all your platforms, probably several million eyes on everything that you're doing. Was that a conscious decision around, like, I'm going to share my life on the internet? Or did it just kind of snowball and happen? And then, why is it something that you choose to continue to do? Like, what is it about? Because it's, the more you grow, like, you're going to get so many followers and fans, but there's also, a lot of hate on the internet. Can you just kind of share your mindset around that? And if it was a conscious decision, I guess, or if it just kind of happened?
Yeah. So at first it did start to just happen a little bit on its own. Like I said, I was sharing my fitness progress and I would get more followers and I would receive, I would receive love and support while I was on my bikini bodybuilding journey. And I really enjoyed that. And then when it came time for me to step into being an entrepreneur and creating something of my own, I realized that I could do that with an online presence. And my passion for the vegan movement became a big part of that because at that time, I had just maybe like 2,000 followers on Instagram, and like nothing too crazy. And I realized, this was back in 2014, I believe, that there weren't any vegan fitness, like strong, powerful women, like showing what you can do in a plant-based diet. At the time, you would search vegan bodybuilding and there was only like one website that would come up. There wasn't very many vegan athletes. People just didn't believe that you could get fit and healthy and build muscle on a vegan diet. So I thought, okay, well, I need to show people that this is possible. So it became really, passion driven. I was really driven by the vegan movement because I'm really passionate about it. And at the same time, I was also really passionate about creating something with my life because I came from a humble beginning and I fell in love with the law of attraction and the concept of manifestation. And I thought, okay, I'm going to put this stuff to work and I'm going to actually build an amazing life for myself. And that just, it kept snowballing and snowballing. And then I love, like I've always loved performing. So I love being in front of an audience of people, and I just allowed that to continue to grow. And now my message has really changed and evolved. I'm still passionate about the vegan movement. I still share content about being vegan, but I have more to say, more about spirituality, about empowering the feminine and so much more. And so that's adding to that like passion to build it.
Is there anything that you don't share on the internet?
Well, I definitely have a lot that I don't share. My relationship is seemingly so public. That was probably something that I kept, private for so long. The challenges of building a sustainable union with a person, but we started sharing openly on both of our podcasts and sharing about why we broke up. We broke up for 9 months, and that really personal, like deep stuff. That was the kind of stuff that we didn't share, but then we realized that when we did share it helped people and they really loved it. So we've been sharing more about that. And the other part, I would say, I haven't shared a whole lot about my experience with psychedelics and how it's impacted my life in plant medicine. I've started to, though. It's more so just been kind of opening up the conversation in the right way and getting around the censorship of the internet and the social media and the big tech. They don't want us to talk about those things. So sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm going to share a little bit. Like I'll say plant medicine, I'll say ceremony, but I don't know what I can and can't say,
Yeah, no, this is actually something that I would love to learn from you on because, obviously all of the content that we're putting out there is around mushrooms, psychedelics. It doesn't matter if it's chaga or psilocybin. It's obviously getting shadow banned on Instagram, TikTok, all of these things. If you are promoting anything that Instagram could deem sexuality or psychedelics, it's just you're not going to get engagement. You're not going to get eyes on your stuff. And obviously, like a lot of your content is very about empowering the feminine, sexuality. Like, how do you get it? Has that been an issue for you? And how do you get around it?
Yeah, it definitely has. And my way of getting around it has been just about learning the system, talking to other content creators and seeing what works, what gets people banned, and just trying to be smart about it. But there was a big shift because it wasn't always as strict. And from what I was told from agencies that I've worked with that worked with a lot of, models that have OnlyFans and, girls that post more like risque content, is that it's not so much, Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, but it's more the big tech companies, because if anything is can be deemed as pornographic or explicit, then they can be threatened to be taken off of the App Store. So that's why they started really cracking down and just taking down anything that can be deemed as pornographic. But what the joke is that it's only for women. There are men and male OnlyFans creators who get their accounts taken down. Of course, I'm not excluding them, but we all know that a man can show both of their nipples on the internet and it's no big deal. But if a girl's wearing a see-through shirt and you can see enough nipple, then that's considered explicit, or I've had Instagram stories taken down that were just me in a bikini or lingerie, and it's taken down for sexual solicitation, which is not what I'm doing. I'm just existing in my body. But just because I am also an OnlyFans creator, they group me in there. So yeah, so learning about the censorship is it's come with research. Honestly, whether that's like me reading stuff online, reading what they say in the creators, like the background of the creator academy stuff and Instagram, and trying to figure out how to be safe and just trying to not censor my content, but just adapt to the guidelines so that my message can still be received without being shut down. Because a lot of people want to rebel against it. And they're like, whatever, I'm going to post artistic nude photos because it's art. Yes, it is. And you deserve to do that. But the apps don't see it that way. And then your content doesn't get seen and your message doesn't get heard. So just learning how to adapt to it has been the only thing that I've been able to do.
And, even still with the censorship that goes on, I feel like your message is definitely getting out there. And specifically, if we were to like double click on your perspective on sexuality, because a lot of people actually that when your name and conversation has come up, there's been reflected like a few things. One is like, she's such an incredible dancer, like, and such a sweet person, like all these amazing things about, your personality and who you are as a person from the people that feel like they really do know you. And also that you're spreading such a really unique message around female sexuality. And I'm sure that's a lot of what your coaching work is with women. But did you, is it through dance? Is it through all these like artistic expressions of yourself that have always been a part of you to like get you to this point where you feel like super confident and like in your own, embodied in your own sexuality? Like what was your journey with it? And like, what is your message around sexuality for women? Yeah,
that's a great question. My journey with it has, it's kind of always been this natural thing that was inside of me, paired with a reclamation. And so on the first piece, what I mean is I always wanted to be a very expressive person. I started doing sexy photo shoots when I was 18 and my mom was not happy about it. And I would do photo shoots in bikinis or even like implied, kind of topless photos. And I felt really empowered because I was just in awe of my body as a woman. And women are, we are under so much pressure to be a certain way to fit this patriarchal beauty standard. We're not thin enough. We're not curvy enough. Our boobs aren't big enough. Our butt's not big enough. We have too much cellulite. We have too much body hair. And all of that can feel really disempowering to us. And so to claim your body and your sexuality and feel empowered in it just as it is with your body hair, your cellulite, your stretch marks, and feel free in it and like own it and love it and be proud of it is a rebellious act. And so I didn't even realize that I was doing that at first, but I was like, why do people have such a problem with this? Like, this is me. Like, this is how I want to dress. This is how I want to dance. This is the type of art that I like creating with photographers. And if people are too shocked by it, then it's not for them and that's okay, but they don't need to condemn me for it, And we look at like all of this kind of goes back to like the witch trials, of if a woman was like seduced a man, when they weren't married, she was considered a witch instead of it being like just two people that wanted to hook up, right? And so, so it's been a really important message for me, and so many women reach out to me and they resonate with it, and they see me reclaiming that and they want to reclaim it too. And so that's it's become part of my message, along with a reclamation of my sexuality, because I am somebody who was a survivor of sexual assault, as many women are. 1 in 5 women are sexually assaulted. And a lot of times we can withdraw from sex, from pleasure, from loving our bodies. We can start to hate ourselves after that experience. And it can take years or lifetimes to recover from that. And so for me, that's been part of my healing journey. And it's also, for a lot of my clients, it's been a massive part of their healing journey if they are survivors of abuse.
Wow. And with that experience specifically, like how did you, because actually, in my personal world, most people I know that have had experience with sexual assault, sexual trauma, they do tend to go the opposite way, where they have, they like are kind of a recluse from their sexuality. And then there's so much of like this trauma resolve that they have to go through to get to that place. Did you have to go through that journey, or were you just like, I'm going to rebel and like go the other way and feel empowered? How did you kind of get there? How did you close the gap?
So I believe that a lot of people go one or two ways where they become either hypersexual or almost like asexual, where they just don't want like sex and they withdraw. And for me, it was kind of like this roller coaster of going back and forth between the two, of going through phases where like I didn't want my body to be like touched. I would even get like triggered if somebody put their hand on my shoulder, and then where I would kind of feel really hypersexual. And so for me, my healing journey has been trying to find the balance in between there and realizing that my body is not sexual unless I consent for it to be. Inherently, like a woman's body is not sexual unless she consents that it is and she decides that it is in that moment. And so that's allowed me to realize that I don't have to withdraw from sex. I don't have to be hypersexual. I can just be and just explore whatever comes up on my journey. And part of that, being in a union with a partner who's supportive of my healing journey has really allowed me to explore that. And like, Nimai is fully supportive of me reclaiming my sexuality and exploring it and holding space for that journey. And so he's been a massive part of that as well as, therapy. I've experienced different types of therapy that's been helpful as well. Psychedelics have been really helpful actually on my journey as well. And, but yeah, for some people, they do go really hard one way, and that's part of their journey. And if they choose, if they decide they want to choose to move out of that, they can with the proper support and therapy or whatever tools they need for healing.
Yeah. And I'd love to talk about Nimai.
Yeah.
And, I actually probably know you guys to the same level. And Nimai's coming on the podcast later today, which is going to be awesome. So I feel like there's so many things that I can take from this conversation and ask him about as well. But you guys are also really open about your relationship on the internet, which is really cool for a few different reasons. Is one, you share the highs and you share the lows. And I remember I saw something, I don't know which one of your pages it was on, but it was, we are not your couple goals.
Yeah.
Or couple goals, however you say that. And, I watched the clip, and it was around everything you kind of touched on around, breaking up for 8 months, why that happened, and sharing the kind of like the dark moments that led to that. And, it's like the classic, what people share on the internet with their relationship, specifically with relationships, is usually the highlights, because it's different if it's with yourself. There's like the vulnerability talk track where people are like, people are now starting to talk more about mental health, where now it's cool to talk about mental health.
Right.
So we're kind of hitting that inflection point. But I do feel like with relationships specifically, to put your relationship into the spotlight or on blast for various different things feels almost more vulnerable than just yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And, to be able to make, you guys are both these massive creators, and to make the choice to like, be vulnerable individually and then together is such an interesting thing. But I'm honestly, I have no doubt that most of probably the inbound that you guys get is around like your relationship and how you make it work. And can you just talk around like that decision and your guys' journey, whatever you want to share with it?
Yeah. So like I mentioned before, my relationship was kind of something that, I was open about the fact that I was in a relationship with this person, but the things that we were going through, the challenges that we faced together, were things that I kept more private, because I was, I guess almost like I just believed in, like it's too much for people. They don't need to know everything. And people don't need to know everything about your life. That is true. But I didn't want people to take one little like snippet of something so vulnerable and then completely, misinterpret it and then have their own like projections onto our relationship. But then I realized people are going to do that anyways. Whether we show the highlight reel or we share the vulnerable truths, people are going to look at our relationship and they're going to be like, well, I bet that person cheats. I bet that person does this. Or they might be like, wow, they're so perfect. They don't have any problems. People are going to make their assumptions no matter what. So me and Nimai together, we decided that we would rather share our truths, because if anything, we hope that it can help people in relationships overcome the darknesses that they face together, because we've been in some really dark moments together. And we don't learn how to relate to people. We don't learn how to be in romantic relationships in school. Our only example is maybe our parents or our older siblings or, our caretakers when we're children. And a lot of us, their relationships were not perfect, and they also didn't learn how to relate to each other. So with all of the work and time that we've invested into, overcoming things together, it feels like almost like our like duty to share it with people if it can help them, because some of the stuff that we've learned together, like how to communicate, how to validate your partner's feelings, how to hold space for them when they're scared to tell you something that's going to hurt you. Sharing those tools with people, if it can help just, one couple, then it's worth it. And like I said, we're going to get criticism either way. So we decided, you know what, we're going to share. And we did that first episode, the We're Not Your Couple Goals. And that was us explaining why we broke up, which was really, really scary for both of us because of all of the judgment we knew that we would face. And we did get a lot of judgment for it, but we got way more love and support. And we still to this day get messages about that particular episode of people saying, thank you for sharing. It's opened up my eyes. It's made me have this conversation with my partner. It's allowed me to feel more empathetic for how my partner hurt me, or how I can show up better for my partner. And so it's totally worth it. And I've always felt like being authentic online is a huge part of my duty as a creator as well. And so for us to do it together is really special.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the kind of core reason of why you're probably doing all this, to get those messages, and you actually see what you're creating in the macro affect people in the micro. Like it's to be able to create and put out this content that has been the culmination of years of your work, and then to get messages from couples that were like, hey, this changed my relationship. I'm now staying in the relationship that I thought I was going to leave, or I'm leaving a relationship that I thought I was going to stay in. And that's something I think a lot about, and that's really interesting, right? Because most people, I actually don't have, out of all the relationships I know around me in my life, I would say overwhelmingly, most of them have, first of all of them have like their stuff, right? All of them have their issues. They're all beautiful relationships in their own way. But a lot of people, especially in, if you look at the divorce rate in America, just for example, it's 50%. And if you look at the percentage of people that are actually in like happy, fulfilled, conscious partnerships out of the remaining of those, it's difficult to find fulfillment in relationship. And it's very hard to have, a beautiful, fulfilling one. But a lot of people stay in relationships that they should leave, right? And then a lot of people dip out before they've done enough work. And what is your perspective? Because I'm sure you guys, whether it's through the podcast or separately, coach people on their relationship. Like, what is your perspective around how much time someone should invest into a relationship? And like, at what point do they have enough data to say if they should stay in it or not?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, finding that discernment for yourself of, have you fully given your fullest effort of energy, of time and commitment to the growth, that the work that the relationship needs, then you can discern from there, because a lot of times we think, okay, I'm so emotionally exhausted and drained. Feels like we're having conversations in circles and circles and circles. I can't do this anymore.
It's like when Groundhog Day hits, you're like, you got it.
Right. And that's when you're like, okay, I can't do this anymore. But when you come to make that decision, if it feels right in your body, then maybe that is the right decision. But I would always just invite both people in the relationship to just explore the question of, have we really done everything if we both really want to, which could look like couples therapy, could look like coaching together and individually. It could look like reading books together on communication and on relationships. Have you really done that? A lot of people they've sat and they've talked to each other over and over and over, but that's when the circles start happening. And if you haven't gotten outside support, then you haven't really done everything you can to salvage the relationship. Or salvage is, I don't even really like the word salvage. It's more like to transform the relationship into like an up-leveled relationship. And if you don't want to do that, then that's also okay. Because if you do not want that, then maybe that's not your person, and you can let it go and you can let them move on as well. So just kind of analyzing, have I really done my fullest effort, and if you have, and you feel energetically drained and your gut is telling you there's something else out there for me, then you can leave the relationship. But that's kind of how I would advise that.
I think this is a good point to pivot into psychedelics.
Yeah.
Because, and I actually, in preparation for this episode, I was listening to your podcast. So Bianca also has a podcast. If you guys have not listened to it, go check it out. And I think I was listening to the first episode. You relaunched it, right? Like, you had it previously. You recently relaunched it.
Yeah.
Which, is probably an exciting thing for you, given that you're like more spirituality and focus probably on different conversation topics. Like your talk track of life is probably much different. It's probably cool to listen to those first episodes versus the ones now. But I was listening to the most recently launched one of the first episodes, and you were talking about, Nima was interviewing you, and you were talking about when you were a kid, your outlet being art rather than drugs and alcohol. And I was reading this, I want to read this quote. I'm reading this book right now. It's called Drugs for Grown-Ups. Have you heard of this book?
No, I haven't.
It's by Carl Hart. I just started it, but the quote in the beginning cover of the book is, imagine if the only subject of any discussion about driving automobiles was fatal car crashes. And then it talks about, drugs for grown-ups offers a radically different vision. When used responsibly, drugs can enrich and enhance our lives. Yet, when we grow up, it's the DARE program. It's just say no to drugs. And I was thinking about this when I was listening to your podcast, because I actually 100% agree. If you would have turned to drugs and alcohol at that age, and that would have been your outlet for creative expression, it would have led to a totally different life. If you would have been like, alcohol is my my format of creative expression versus art. However, so much of what we talk about, and like I talk about, is aligned with this perspective on drugs for grownups, of how to integrate drugs responsibly into your adult life. So when did it start for you? I guess, what is your journey with specifically psychedelics? And have you, were you sober growing up and then it came into your field later? I just want to talk about the whole journey, but just to start there.
Yeah. So I was a pretty sober kid. I didn't even smoke weed until I was in my 20s. And I don't know if it was fear. It was probably a little bit of fear and a little bit of just my own judgment that I projected onto other people and then onto myself. And I just thought, I was always afraid to be out of control. I was like, okay, I can control myself when I'm sober. I don't know what's going to happen to me if I have anything else in my body. And so it wasn't until I was 25 that I tried LSD for the first time, and I was on a beach in Mexico with Nimai and one of our other friends, and I took a small amount of LSD, and I was very scared to do it, and that was the first time that I was really able to just drop into a completely different perspective. And I thought, okay, well, it really made me realize that I just didn't know shit, really. I was like, okay, I actually don't know. I had all this judgment around what psychedelics or substances, like what they meant and what they did. And it gave me a totally different perspective, because I became really, I just had a lot of internal reflection that day. And it really just, I tapped into my childhood creativity again. And because I was on the beach, I used to build these massive sandcastles when I was a kid. So then I built this massive sand mermaid. It basically looked like a person, but was made out of sand. And
while you were on LSD.
While I was on LSD. And I just had so much fun doing that. And it allowed me to really just tap into my inner child and that creative spark that I had again. So then after that experience, a couple months later, came Christmas time, and Nimai for Christmas got me a spot in an ayahuasca ceremony.
With him or separately?
With him, yeah. Okay. And I didn't ask for it, but we had...
does LSD once right into the into the tornado.
Right. And I didn't ask for it, but we had, while we were in Mexico, we had met so many people who just kept bringing up their transformational experience with, the medicine ayahuasca. And we were both really fascinated by it. I was like, wow, I've never heard of this before. That's crazy. These people have these life-changing transformations and their whole life path changes after they do this medicine. But it also sounds really scary and intimidating for me. And then because me and Nimai had talked about it, he decided that was going to be my Christmas gift if I chose to accept it. And I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds like I need to do that. And leading up to it, I was so scared. I was so terrified. I almost backed out the day of. And then even when we were there in ceremony, I was literally physically shaking because I was so nervous.
Was it one night or were you going for 3 nights?
It was 2 nights.
Okay.
It was 2 nights. And then I even told the facilitators, I'm really nervous. I'm a very sensitive person. Can I just do a smaller amount? And they discussed it among themselves. They're like, yeah, we'll start you off a smaller amount so you can see how you feel. And then we'll progress from there. So then I took a really small amount, and then I went and, waited for it to activate. And I should also preface this saying that so now I'm 25 going on 26 at this point. My whole life leading up to this, I've always had a psychic gift, and I've always been in touch with spirit communication, and I've always been really scared of that gift. And I would not talk about it with anybody other than like super close friends or my mom and my sister.
And how has that shown up for you? Is it just like voices, messages?
Yeah, kind of a combination of like clairvoyance. So like I do like see images. I've heard voices. I've had like deep knowings of things. My first psychic communication that was like really intense and really meaningful was when I was 8 years old. My brother was 3 and he fell in the pool and had pretty much drowned. He was already sinking and my family didn't know where he was. And a spirit told me that he was in the pool and I needed to go find him. And he was, and I saved his life. And so that was when I was 8 years old. So
Whoa.
My whole life leading up to this ayahuasca ceremony, I would always not like fully dive into the gift, but I would always have a knowing, and I would share, like Nima knew, but I didn't talk about it a whole lot. And so I did this first smaller like serving of the medicine. And as it started to activate, I got in touch with my grandmother who pretty much raised me until the age of 3 when she passed away. And I was immediately like, I need more. Like I need to go to whatever this place is. So then I went back up to the altar. I was like, may I have some more? And then I went fully into the experience, and my whole experience was me really tapping into my abilities as a psychic medium, and also receiving a lot of just downloads and understandings of myself and my pain and my trauma and how it's showing up in my life. And that ceremony really changed the whole course of my life. It allowed me to really connect with my spirituality again. And one of the main messages I got was, why did you stop dancing? Why did you stop painting? Because at that point when I was 25, from the age of 18 to 25, it was like bodybuilding, fitness, building my business, building my Instagram. And I would still like dance here and there, but not to the extent that I was doing it before. And I pretty much completely stopped painting. And when I left a ceremony, I was like, I need to get back into the arts. Like, I can't believe, I was like, who am I? Like, how did I just leave behind this massive part of my identity? And so the version of me that people see on social media now, like dancing so freely and painting and doing creative stuff and talking about embodiment movement, that version of me really came to life because of the medicine ayahuasca, and she allowed me to tap into that again. So that was that because that experience was so meaningful for me, and it opened up my mind to then, because at that point I haven't even tried mushrooms yet, but then I was like, okay, I think I can do mushrooms, ayahuasca, and I even in that ceremony as well was the reason that I got an explant, even though I had my explant only a couple months ago, and this was in 2019. That was one of the big kind of messages that I got was these things need to come out. They're not for you. You don't need them anymore. And it just took me 2 years of like a really slow ego death to be like, okay, I'm ready to have this operation and remove my implants and completely change my image. And that's been a whole new kind of chapter for me recently. But all of that is because of that medicine. It really like impacted me. And then from there, like I said, it opened up my mind. I was like, okay, yeah, I believe that you can use different substances to have transformational experiences. And then I had some other really meaningful experiences of mushrooms a couple of times, and that allowed me to process that, like my trauma around sexual assault, and have a lot of releasing around it. And it's still a journey that I'm on as well. And that's kind of where I'm at now. And I feel like I've been, I feel like it took me really the past 2 years to really integrate everything that I learned from that ayahuasca ceremony. And now I'm like, okay, I'm ready to do it again and to like keep going deeper.
I mean, that's so much to take away from one experience to come out with. And you hear people say it often when you're talking about ayahuasca, that usually if it's among one of the top 5 most impactful experiences of their life, if not the most impactful. But to come away from that and say, it's completely transformed my life. I returned to my inner creativity. I went back to painting, to dancing, like a lot of what you're spending your current time doing, coming back from 2 nights of sitting with ayahuasca is so powerful. And so when you say you're still integrating it, do you feel like do you often go back to thinking about that experience and like, what else can I implement? Or like, how does it show up for you? Is it just something it's like, that was so impactful, and I want to continue to implement? Or like, how do you think about it now?
Yeah, so I feel like after the ceremony, I went into integrating, bringing the artistic side of myself back into my life immediately. I immediately started painting again. And something that was really interesting as well is that my painting journey from like childhood up until, I was 18 or 19 whenever I quit was very dark. If you look at my paintings, my mom still has all my old paintings and they were very dark. They were really grim. I just always like thought of myself as like the princess of darkness. Like I painted lots of skulls. Everything was in grayscale. And coming out of my ayahuasca ceremony, I only paint in neon colors now. And that's just what feels right to me. And that's like what, like I align with that. So my whole like color palette, changed. And so finding my painting style again and what that means for me and what I'm going to do with that, getting back into dancing again. It takes time. Dancing is a journey. I stopped for 5 years. So I started dancing again and trying to remember choreography or like, oh, how do I move this part of my body? Like that just has taken time. And now I feel like, okay, I've integrated those things. Like those things they're moving, they're flowing. And there was also like so much heavy stuff that came up for me, stuff around my relationship with my parents, going through my parents' divorce, going through my dad had an accident. If you listen to my podcast episode, you probably know about it. My dad was shot when I was 12, and that was really impactful. And I also didn't really process it when it happened because it was very matter of fact. It was like, that happened. This horrible tragedy happened to my family and life goes on. And so all of that really heavy stuff, it's been 2 years since it all came up for me in that ceremony. And I go to therapy. I talk about it with my therapist, and it's surprising how much I got out of just those 2 evenings that it's still 2 years later, I'm still processing and learning from it just from 2 nights. It's been 2 years of education about myself and who I am and what I'm here to do. And so it's been a lot of integration, and now I feel like I'm ready to I feel like I've been like peeling back this layer. I'm ready to go into the next one. And my explant was part of that too, because I was really delaying it because it's hard to, change your image in front of millions of people. And so it took me a while to be like, okay, I have to do that. And once I ripped that Band-Aid off, I felt like, okay, I'm ready for the next chapter.
How has it been received and helpful to people? Because I actually don't know a lot of influencers that have been public about their explant journey. I know a lot of people in my personal world. I actually have a friend that because of other health complications, she realized she had to get her implants out. Mm-hmm. And she, when that happened, she was like, I feel like at home in my body for the first time. How has like the physical experience been? And has there been any like spiritual stuff around that as well? Because I mean, there's objects in your body for a certain period. You become acclimated to those. How has that journey been?
Yeah. So when I did the ayahuasca ceremony, my experience was I had a vision of seeing myself on the operation table, getting my implants in. It was like I was watching it from overhead, and I just thought, what am I doing?
Getting them in.
Yeah. And I just thought, what am I doing? Why did I do that? Like I paid money to go under and be cut open to put artificial objects inside my body to change what I look like, because I didn't like what I look like. And it made me really sad. But having an explant is it's not like, taking off your fake eyelashes. It's a whole process. It's expensive. It costs more actually to get them out than to put them in. You have to recover from it. I wasn't ready to take the time off and for my image to change in front of people, especially, like I said, I'm an OnlyFans creator. A lot of people know me for my body and what I look like. And then I was about to change that. So it took me time to feel confident in it. And I thought about it. I sat on it for 2 years. And then I did a mushroom ceremony. Mm-hmm. And I realized that I had some resistance to mushrooms, because every time I did mushrooms, it was like they were telling me to take the implants out of my body. They were just like encouraging that. They were like, this doesn't feel comfortable. We don't want this here. I can't breathe good. I'm getting anxiety about it. And so I did this mushroom ceremony a couple months ago. And that's when I was like, all right, it's time. Like they need to come out. I'm strong enough now. And even though I'm scared to see what my body's going to look like after, not because of the chest size difference, but more so from the scars, because, just scars can be scary to see for the first time. I just felt like I had to do it. I felt like such a deep knowing that I had to do it for my body, and the plants were encouraging me to do it, So then I did it, and it's been received really well. I mean, I've had so many women message me telling me that they, have canceled their appointment to get their implants because they've seen through my journey, they've seen that they don't need implants in their body, and that you can love yourself no matter what your chest size is. And I think that that's a really beautiful benefactor of my own journey, because I did it for me, but for it to have an impact on women being able to love and accept their bodies how they are, I mean, that just like nothing beats that feeling. Of course, there are people that will say mean things, and I've only really gotten negative comments from men. Unfortunately, they don't like what they don't understand, and that's okay. And I just, my message isn't for them. My body's not for them. My body's not for anybody but myself. And so it's been a really important part of my journey, and finally feeling at home in my body. My mental health has been massively improved. I used to have anxiety almost every single day that I had to manage, and I do not have that at all anymore. Wow. And I noticed that I woke up from surgery, and I was happy. I didn't feel sick from the anesthesia. I just felt good, and I was hungry, and that was so weird because that's not how you're supposed to feel after surgery. Like I just felt so good. My body was just like so happy. And so it's been a really positive journey, and I was able to look at my body with scars and be like, cool, I have scars now. Who cares?
I mean, it's amazing that I truly, I went and looked at a bunch of this content, and I was like, I have no doubt in my mind that people that have been following your journey for so many years, and exactly the fact that people have been reaching out to you and saying, I canceled my appointment to go and do this life-changing surgery, and that's probably happened more times than people that have actually reached out to you to tell you, but you would never have been able to make that impact unless you went through this entire journey and amassed the amount of followers that you had and went through this whole thing yourself. So, I mean, I think it's just really cool. And I love that you're sharing so openly about it, because it's probably helped so many people, not only with, their own body stuff, but also just, I mean, time, energy, money, putting effort towards things that now they're like, I don't need to put effort towards this, and they can put their mental capacity towards other things in their life. It's really awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. And it's been, I think that it was an important part of my journey to have them and wear them for those. It was really 7 or almost 8 years that I had my implants in my body. And I feel like it was important because I can speak from a place of, I went there, I had plastic surgery. It does not make you happy. You can change your body, but if you have not dealt with those deep inner wounds that are the things that make you feel like you're not beautiful enough, or you're just not enough of something, if you don't deal with those things, no amount of cosmetic surgery or makeup is going to change that. And so I can speak from that perspective, and I'm grateful that I have that perspective, because it's one thing for women to hear from women who don't have surgery, or from men who don't have surgery. You don't need that.
You've been through all sides.
Yeah, you don't need that. I'm like, I can tell you, I've been there, went there, bought the t-shirt, became an expert. You don't need it, right. And and just really understanding that there's such a difference between changing yourself and adorning yourself. You can adorn yourself with glitter and earrings and changing your hair and tattoos, and there's a difference between adorning yourself and then completely changing yourself to be something else, and that's a very different journey.
I really like that. I don't know if you've shared that exact quote before, but I really like the way
just
you said
kind of
that.
in my head. It's kind of in my head all the time.
Yeah, no, I like the way that you worded that, because there's, like, I love dressing up. I love,
me too.
all of these elements, but that's what I was also reflecting, to bring it full circle to Chelsea, who's sitting on the other side of this camera, before we started recording, is that you show both ends of the spectrum. You like have all these amazing costumes and like all this insane jewelry and makeup, and you're gorgeous, and then you show videos of you dancing in sweatpants with like no makeup and just like, fresh out of bed in the morning. So you show that range, and both are real. And I was like, what is the words that you can put around that? But there is, the adorning yourself versus changing yourself. And I really like the way that you worded that.
Yeah, I'm all for adornment. I think adornment is part of our ancestry, every ancestry, no matter where you're from and what your lineage is. Adornment in every culture is something that we celebrate with to celebrate, changes and benchmarks in our lives, or just to feel special or beautiful.
It's
or
ceremonial. It's celebration.
It is ceremonial. And it feels like whenever I have a day where today I put on makeup, I don't wear makeup every day, but when I put on makeup, it is an experience for me. And it's like, what do I want to do? I even asked Nima, I'm like, do I want to be dark today? Do I want to be light today? Do I want to be colorful today? Should I put glitter on? Like it's like a fun creative experience for me, and that's very different versus getting plastic surgery and saying like, I really don't like this thing about myself and I need to change it because it's not acceptable. Totally different experience. And I'm not anti-cosmetic enhancements as well, because I cannot speak for everybody's journey. I'm not in their body. I don't know what they're experiencing. But I do think that really doing that deep self-love work will change the journey.
Amazing. And and there's so much science around if you wear certain colors. Even you saying, I went from painting grayscale to painting a neon. Like that's kind of the most beautiful description of like pre and post ayahuasca. Like it's the physical manifestation of it. But like a lot of people go through that experience where they feel like they're living their life in grayscale. And then what psychedelics often, or whatever, and it ends up being meditation, movement, whatever your medicine is. Maybe it's a combination of all of them. Maybe it's one in isolation. Is you kind of can transcend into this life in color, and to feel like you're living out loud, and to feel like you're living more vibrantly. It's really beautiful. So I love that. And there also is, what I was going to say is there's all this science around if you wear certain colors, how it can make you feel. If you wear red, like there's a science around your aura and like how it changes with certain fabrics and colors and things. So it's definitely, it's as much mental as it is actual physical as well. A few more questions for you before we close out. And this has been such a fun conversation for me because I feel like I know you so much deeper and have gotten to learn all of the different dynamics of what you're doing in the world. And if you had to kind of summarize, what is the impact that you hope that your work has? I think, you're obviously still on your journey. You're continuing to evolve and change. And maybe in a few years, it's going to be spirituality was the thing you used to talk about. Now it's plus this whole other kind of industry. And what is the impact that you hope that your work has on the world?
It's an excellent question. I would say I hope to inspire people to step into embodiment and in the most authentic way. So that's going to look different for everybody. For me, what it looks like is what you see when you see me dancing and painting and feeling really sexy sometimes and like doing a sexy photo set, or whatever that is, like makeup and whatever that embodiment is. And I really just hope to inspire people to find that within themselves, because I know what it feels like to not be an authentic embodiment. I know what it feels like to feel like you are so ashamed of parts of yourself because you think they're unacceptable, and you hide them, and you're not really being yourself. You're being who you think you're supposed to be. You're being who you think people will like, and that is not living life to the fullest experience. So yeah.
It's beautiful. What is the most exciting thing that's happening in your next 6 months? Like what's next for you? What should people be like looking out for in your content?
Yeah. So in the next 6 months, I am excited because I'm hosting my first Embodied Babe retreat in Joshua Tree.
Amazing.
So this is going to be my first in-person experience because all of my Embodied Babe coaching has been online. So I'm really excited to be there in person and be able to give my clients Reiki, to guide them through movement and dance and meditations, and really get to work with them like in this close of proximity. So I'm going to be doing more retreats as well, and just more in-person experiences so I can help people step into that embodiment with beyond more than just speaking. Because with online is amazing, you have such a bigger reach, but there's only so much I can share with people versus when I'm there in person and I can use my hands and I can help them celebrate. And so I'm really excited about that.
And no censorship when it's in person.
And no censorship. Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, amazing. And we always close out with this question. What is the most important lesson that psychedelics have taught you? And you can pick any of your psychedelics. There's obviously a lot that we covered here, but if you had to say one lesson, what would you share?
I would say that, man, I mean, there's so many. I know that you know this. One that maybe is an unexpected answer is that you are capable of forgiving people and yourself. And I was able to achieve that with the help of plant medicine, of people that have hurt me, people who I felt like have wronged me, to have empathy for other people and particularly myself. And that's been something that I don't know if I would have been able to achieve that. Maybe I would have. It probably would have taken me longer. I feel like I was able to shortcut that by my use of psychedelics.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I can't wait to talk to Nimai now. I feel like it's just...
I know. Now you're going to know all about his life too.
There's so many like juicy seeds that have been planted in this conversation. Where can people find you online? You have quite a few Instagram handles. We'll obviously like link them all up. Yeah. Where can people follow you and your journey and your life in neon color? Yeah,
so I have my main Instagram is Bianca Taylor M, and then my coaching page is The Embodied Babe, and then I'm also Bianca Taylor M on TikTok and Twitter, and then my personal page is Bianca Taylor Universe, which is where I share a little bit more of like my art and just my personal life stuff.
Okay, amazing. Well, everyone go follow all of those accounts. And also as a fun surprise, I'm also going to be on Bianca's podcast tomorrow. Yay! So we get to spend 2 days back to back with each other and so much more to come. We'll definitely do this again. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks for diving into the multiverse with us. If you're interested in being a future guest on the show, sponsorship, partnership, or you're just mushroom curious, we're always looking to expand our mycelium network. Find us on Instagram at Multiverse or online at yourmultiverse.com. See you next week.